Imagine walking down a British high street on a Saturday morning in 1960, a crisp 5-pound note folded carefully in your coat pocket. That single note, green and substantial in your hand, wasn't just pocket money. It was a week's groceries for a family of 4, with change left over for a treat. The air smelled different then, coal smoke mixing with fresh bread from the baker's, the metallic tang of the butcher's shop, the earthy scent of vegetables, still carrying yesterday's soil. Shop bells rang as housewives moved from one establishment to another, their string bags growing heavier with each purchase. Today, that same fiver barely covers a sandwich meal deal and a coffee. Let's step back into that world and discover exactly what 5 pounds sterling could buy in 1960 Britain, a shopping bill that will genuinely shock you, not just in its affordability, but in how it reveals an entirely different way of life. Number 20. A pound of best back bacon for 1 shilling and 6pence. Picture the butcher, white apron stained with the day's work, slicing thick rashers from a side of bacon hanging behind the counter. The meat was marbled with fat, proper fat, that would sizzle and crisp in the pan, filling your kitchen with a smell that meant Sunday morning. 1 and 6. That's about 7.5 pence in today's decimal money. The butcher knew your family, knew you wanted it cut thick, wrapped it in waxy paper that you'd save and reuse. He'd throw in a few bones for the dog without charging. There was a ritual to it, a conversation, perhaps a comment about the weather or the cricket. Today, a pound of decent bacon in Tesco costs around £4.50 minimum. That's 60 times more expensive. But it's not just the price. You'd pick it from a plastic tray under fluorescent lights, scan it yourself at a machine, no conversation, no bones for the dog. The bacon itself, pumped with water, shrinks in the pan to half its size. We've traded community and quality for convenience, and somewhere in that exchange, Saturday morning shopping lost its soul. Number 19. 2 large loaves of bread for 11 pence. The baker's shop window would be steamed up from the heat of the ovens out back, and when you pushed open the door, warmth hit you like a wave. The bread sat in wicker baskets, no plastic wrapping, still warm if you'd timed it right. You could smell the yeast, that primal, comforting smell that humans have known for thousands of years. A proper tin loaf, dense and substantial, would last 2 days if you kept it in the bread bin. 11 pence for 2 loaves. Today's money, that's not even 5 pence. Your mother would buy them mid-morning, tucking one under each arm, and by dinner time the crust would be that perfect texture, crisp on the outside, soft within. The baker's wife might slip a broken biscuit to a child waiting by the counter. Today, a standard loaf costs around £1.20, and it's filled with preservatives to keep it soft for a week. But that chemical longevity comes at a cost. Modern bread tastes of nothing, really, just soft air and a hint of sweetness. We've gained shelf life and lost flavor, gained convenience, and lost the warmth of that baker's shop on a cold morning. Number 18. A dozen eggs for 2 shillings and 3pence. These weren't uniform, white, refrigerated eggs in a cardboard carton. They came from the farm just outside town, or from Mrs. Henderson down the lane who kept chickens in her back garden. The eggs were different sizes, different shades, brown and cream and sometimes pale blue. Some had bits of straw or a feather stuck to them. You'd carry them home carefully in a brown paper bag, knowing that one slip meant disaster. 2 and 3pence. That's about 11 pence today. You could see the richness in them when you cracked them open, yolks the color of marigolds, thick whites that held their shape in the pan. The chickens had actually seen daylight, scratched in dirt, eaten kitchen scraps. Today, a dozen eggs costs around £2.50 if you want free range, though even those birds rarely see true countryside. But here's the thing that shocks modern sensibilities. Those 1960 eggs weren't labeled organic or free range or farm fresh. They were just eggs, the only kind available. We needed labels to distinguish them only after we'd industrialized them into something barely recognizable. Number 17. 2 pounds of butter for 3 shillings and 6pence. Butter came in a block, wrapped in grease-proof paper cut from a larger block, with wooden butter pats. The grocer would shape it, pat it, weigh it, Maybe add a bit more if you were a penny short that week, and he knew you'd settle up next time. 3 and 6 for 2 pounds, that's about 17.5 pence in modern decimal. Real butter from British cows that grazed on British grass, turning green into gold through some ancient magic we've never quite understood. It was hard when cold, needed leaving out to soften before you could spread it. Your grandmother kept a butter dish, porcelain, with a lid to keep the flies off in summer. Today, 2 pounds of butter costs around 8 pounds, nearly 45 times more expensive. But look in most shopping trolleys, and you'll see margarine, spreads, substitutes. We convinced ourselves that hydrogenated vegetable oil in a plastic tub was somehow better than the butter humans had eaten for millennia. We've gained long shelf lives and lost the simple pleasure of butter on fresh bread, so rich you could practically feel it coating your lips. Number 16. A pint of milk for 5 pence. But this isn't just about the price. Milk arrived at your doorstep before dawn, delivered by a man who drove an electric float that hummed through sleeping streets. Glass bottles clinked in their wire crate, cardboard tops that magpies learned to peck through for the cream floating on top. 5 pence a pint, that's about 2 pence today. You'd bring the bottles in before the sun could warm them, and in winter you might find the cream had pushed the top up an inch. Frozen solid. The bottles got returned, washed, refilled, used again. There was no waste, just an endless cycle of use and reuse. Children would fight over who got to shake the bottle to mix the cream back in, or who got the cream on their porridge. Today, a pint of milk costs around 60 pence, 30 times more, and it comes in plastic or cartons, homogenized so the cream can never separate, pasteurized at such high temperatures that something essential is lost. The milkman, that figure of dependability who knew everyone's order, who'd leave an extra pint if you left a note, has vanished almost entirely. We've gained consistency and lost that small, daily human connection, the knowledge that someone was looking out for your doorstep before you'd even woken. Number 15. A pound of tea for 5 shillings. Tea wasn't kept in bags then, not in most homes. It came loose, black leaves that smelled of distant places, India or Ceylon, stored in a tin to keep it fresh. 5 shillings a pound, that's 25 pence today, and a pound of loose tea lasted weeks if you were careful. The grocer would weigh it out, pour it into a paper bag, fold the top with practiced fingers. Making tea was a ritual. You warmed the pot first, added the leaves, poured boiling water, let it brew properly, 3 minutes for a light cup, 5 for something that could strip paint. The leaves got red sometimes by old ladies who claimed to see your future in the patterns at the bottom of the cup. Today, a pound of loose tea costs around 7 pounds, and most people use tea bags, invented for convenience, little paper sachets that produce something weaker, less complex, less real. We've lost the ritual, the patience required for a proper brew. Speed has replaced ceremony, and somewhere in that hurry, tea became just another caffeinated beverage, rather than the pause that British life revolved around. Number 14. 3 pounds of sugar for 1 shilling and 9 pence. Sugar came in thick blue paper bags, coarse white crystals that poured like sand. 1 and 9 for 3 pounds, that's about 9 pence in modern terms. You kept it in a sugar bowl, sometimes with a special spoon, and you'd stir it into tea until the spoon could nearly stand up on its own. Rationing had only ended 6 years earlier in 1960, and people still remembered the sweetness of that freedom, the ability to use sugar without counting every grain. Your mother would make jam in summer, pounds and pounds of sugar, boiling with strawberries or blackberries picked from the hedgerows, transforming them into something that would last through winter. The kitchen would fill with steam, windows running with condensation, the air thick and sweet. Today, 3 pounds of sugar costs around 3 pounds 50, about 40 times more expensive, and we're told it's poison, empty calories, the root of modern disease. Perhaps that's true. But there was honesty in 1960s sugar. No high-fructose corn syrup, no artificial sweeteners with chemical aftertastes. Just sugar, pure and simple, used in moderation because it cost something, meant something. Number 13. A leg of lamb for 7 shillings and 6pence. Sunday dinner wasn't Sunday dinner without a roast, and lamb was special, saved for best. 7 and 6, that's about 37.5 today. And the butcher would prepare it for you, trim it, maybe tie it if you asked nicely. This was British lamb from Welsh hillsides or Yorkshire moors, sheep that had actually lived like sheep. Your mother would stud it with slivers of garlic, rosemary from the garden, roast it slowly while the family got ready for the midday meal. The house would fill with that rich, fatty smell, windows steaming up from the oven's heat. Everyone sat down together, no phones, no television during dinner, just the family and the food and the ritual of Sunday. Today, a leg of lamb costs around £18, nearly 50 times more, and it's often from New Zealand, frozen, flown halfway around the world. We've gained global supply chains and lost local provenance. More troubling, we've lost the habit of eating together, the table as the center of family life. The roast lamb is just meat now, not the centerpiece of a weekly ritual that held generations together. Number 12. 5 pounds of potatoes for 6pence. They came dirty, covered in the clay they'd grown in, lumpy and irregular, stored in Hessian sacks at the greengrocer's. 6pence for 5 pounds, that's 2.5 pence today. So cheap they were barely worth counting. Potatoes were the foundation of every meal, boiled, mashed, roasted, chipped. You'd buy them by the sack, store them somewhere cool and dark, and they'd sprout before you finished them, those pale shoots reaching for light they'd never find. Your grandmother knew a dozen ways to use leftover potatoes, bubble and squeak, potato cakes, potato soup. Nothing was wasted. There was a solid comfort in potatoes, the knowledge that however tight money got, you could fill a stomach with them. Today, 5 pounds of potatoes costs around £2, 80 times more expensive, and they come washed, sometimes in plastic bags, sometimes even pre-cut. We've gained cleanliness and lost touch with food's origins. Modern children have no concept that potatoes grow in dirt, that food comes from earth and effort. We've sanitized eating into something disconnected from growing, and that disconnection has cost us more than we know. Number 11. A bottle of fresh milk delivered daily for a week, 1 shilling and 3pence total. This deserves its own entry separate from the pint price, because it represents something larger than dairy. That 1 and 3pence, about 6 pence today, bought you 7 days of doorstep delivery, a service so reliable you could set your watch by it. Rain or shine, fog or frost, the milk float hummed its rounds, and there was comfort in that constancy. The milkman wasn't just delivering milk, he was checking the neighborhood, noticing if papers piled up, if curtains stayed closed when they shouldn't. He was part of the community's fabric, informal neighborhood watch, daily presence, someone who'd tell your mother if he saw you skiving off school. Today, we pay around £4.20 for a week's worth of milk, 70 times more, but the milkman's gone. We've gained the freedom to buy milk whenever we want, and lost that daily checkpoint, that human connection, that sense of being part of a community that noticed and cared. Number 10. 2 pounds of carrots for 4pence. Carrots came with their green top still on, dirt clinging to the roots, stored in wooden crates at the greengrocer's. The grocer would twist the tops off, weigh them on brass scales that needed balancing with weights, tip them into your shopping bag. 4 pence for 2 pounds, less than 2 pence today. They were proper carrots, dense and sweet, not the baby carrots and organic heritage varieties we pay premium prices for now. You'd scrape them with a knife, not peel them, because every bit counted. The tops went to rabbits or into the compost, nothing wasted. Carrot and swede mash was a staple, cheap vegetables that filled the plate alongside Sunday's meat. Today, 2 pounds of carrots costs around 80 pence, 40 times more, and they come pre-washed in plastic bags, topped and tailed by machines in industrial plants. We've industrialized something that should be simple. The irony is that we now pay extra for carrots that look like the ones everyone ate in 1960, marketed as rustic or artisan or authentic, charging premium prices for what used to be ordinary. Number 9. A pound of cheese for 2 shillings. British cheese, cheddar mostly, sometimes red Leicester, cut from a wheel with a wire cutter. The grocer would wrap it in waxed paper, and you'd keep it in the pantry, not the fridge, because most people didn't have fridges yet. 2 shillings a pound, that's 10 pence today. The cheese would get harder round the edges, develop character, but you'd grate those hard bits for cooking. Let nothing go to waste. Cheese on toast wasn't a snack. It was a proper meal. Thick slabs of bread under the grill, cheese melting and bubbling and going crispy at the edges. There was no mozzarella, no brie, no exotic varieties from continental Europe, just British cheese, strong and sharp and real. Today, a pound of decent cheddar costs around £7, 70 times more expensive. We've gained variety, entire supermarket aisles of global cheese, but we've lost something too. Modern cheese often tastes of nothing, mass-produced blandness. We confused choice with quality and ended up with neither. Number 8. 4 tins of soup for 2 shillings and 4 pence. Tinned soup was modern convenience, space-age efficiency in a can. 2 and 4 for 4 tins, that's about 12 pence today. And they were substantial soups, Heinz mostly, thick tomato or oxtail or mushroom. The can opener was kept in the kitchen drawer, a piece of equipment everyone knew how to use. You'd heat the soup in a pan, not the microwave, serve it with bread and butter, a quick lunch or light supper. The tins got saved, used for storing nails in the shed, growing seedlings, collecting coins. The whole economy ran on reuse and repair. Nothing was designed to be disposable because disposal cost money. Today, 4 tins of branded soup cost around £6, 50 times more, and we throw the tins in recycling bins without a thought. We've gained the moral satisfaction of recycling and lost the habit of reusing. The soup itself tastes the same, that same metallic tang from the tin, but we've convinced ourselves that fresh soup in cartons is somehow better, paying twice the price for the illusion of authenticity. Number 7. A pound of apples for 1 shilling. But these weren't apples from New Zealand or Chile, available year-round in perfect uniform sizes. These were British apples, Cox's Orange Pippins or Bramleys, bought in season, from September through winter. 1 shilling a pound, that's 5 pence today. They came in different sizes, some bruised, some perfect, all of them real. The greengrocer would let you pick through, and children would be shooed away if they squeezed too hard. Apples kept in the fruit bowl, and your mother would cut out the bad bits rather than throw the whole thing away. An apple a day kept the doctor away, they said, and people believed it because doctors cost money. Today, a pound of apples costs around £2, 40 times more, available every day of the year regardless of season. We've gained constant availability and lost the anticipation of seasonal eating. We've forgotten that fruit tastes better when it's meant to be eaten, when it hasn't been stored for months in controlled atmospheres, flown thousands of miles to arrive year-round. We've gained convenience and lost the rhythm of the seasons. Number 6. A packet of 20 cigarettes for 3 shillings and 2 pence. Before the health warnings, before the graphic images, before we knew about lung cancer and emphysema, cigarettes were just part of life. 3 shillings and 2 pence, about 16 pence today, for 20. The doctor smoked in his surgery, teachers smoked in staff rooms, bus conductors smoked on the lower deck. People smoked in hospitals and cinemas and restaurants. Everyone smoked everywhere. The packet was elegant. Players or Woodbines or Senior Service, with their distinctive branding. Men offered cigarettes like we offer mints now, a gesture of friendliness, of sharing. Women smoked with holders sometimes, trying to look sophisticated, like the women in films. Today, 20 cigarettes cost around £15, nearly 100 times more expensive, covered in warnings and sold from behind shutters like contraband. We've gained knowledge about health and lost a certain innocence. No one misses the smoke-filled rooms, the yellow walls, the smell that clung to everything, but there was a social ritual to it that's disappeared, a pause in the day, a reason to step outside, to talk. We've pathologized smoking, quite rightly, but we haven't replaced the community it created. Number 5. A pint of beer at the pub for 1 shilling and 2 pence. The pub wasn't just a drinking establishment, it was the community's living room, 1 and 2pence a pint, about 6 pence today. You'd go after work or Sunday dinner time after the roast. Men in the public bar, women in the lounge if they came at all, though that was changing in 1960. The beer was served at cellar temperature, not ice cold, and you could taste the hops and malt rather than just the fizz. Darts in the corner, dominoes on tables worn smooth by decades of elbows, sawdust sometimes on the floors. The landlord knew everyone, knew their usual, would extend credit if you were short until payday. Conversations flowed, arguments about football or politics solved and started again the next night. Today, a pint costs around £5.50, nearly 50 times more, and pubs are closing at alarming rates, 50 a month. Community centers lost forever. We've gained gastropubs and craft beer and stripped-out corporate bars and lost something irreplaceable. The pub was where life happened, where you learned the community's business, where bonds were forged. We've privatized socializing, moved it to living rooms and social media, and are lonelier for it. Number 4, a gallon of petrol for 4 shillings and 6pence. Before the oil crisis, before unleaded and premium and electric, petrol was just petrol. 4 and 6 a gallon, about 22 and a half pence today, and that bought you freedom. Sunday drives were a thing. Packing the family in the car, no seatbelts, children bouncing in the back, driving to the coast or the countryside just because you could. The car itself was simpler, no electronics, no computers, something you could fix yourself with basic tools. The petrol station attendant would fill your tank, check your oil, clean your windscreen, all without expecting a tip because that was the service. There was ritual in it, the ding of the hose on the forecourt, the smell of petrol mixing with cigarette smoke, the attendant in his branded uniform. Today, a gallon of petrol costs around £6.50, nearly 30 times more expensive, and you pump it yourself at automated stations, pay at a machine, no human interaction. We've gained efficiency and lost service, gained speed and lost the leisurely Sunday drive. Fuel is now so expensive that we calculate every journey, plan routes for economy, have lost the freedom of just driving for pleasure. Number 3, a week's worth of coal for the fire, 5 shillings. This might seem odd to modern eyes, buying coal as a household staple, but in 1960, Britain coal heated most homes, 5 shillings a week, about 25 pence today, for the 100-weight bags delivered by the coalman, tipped down the chute into the coal cellar or bunker. The coalman was as much a fixture as the milkman, blackened with dust, strong from carrying those bags, always ready with a joke. Coal heated the house, heated water, dried clothes hung on the ceiling rack. The ritual of the fire, laying it with newspaper and kindling, applying the bellows, keeping it fed through the day, banking it at night to last until morning. The house smelled of coal smoke, everywhere did, a smell that defined winter in Britain. Today we've switched to central heating, gas or electric, costing around £20 a week in winter, 80 times more expensive. We've gained cleanliness and constant warmth and lost the focal point of the home. Families gathered round the fire because that's where the heat was, where the light was, where life happened. Central heating means we scatter to different rooms, lose that enforced togetherness. We've gained comfort and lost something harder to quantify, the shared experience of keeping warm. Number 2, a woman's haircut and set for 3 shillings and 6pence. The hairdresser's was a weekly appointment Saturday morning ritual for many women. 3 and 6, about 17 and a half pence today. You'd sit under the dryer reading Women's Weekly. The smell of perming solution and hairspray thicken the air, the heat of the dryer making you drowsy. The hairdresser knew everyone's business, was part therapist, part newsagent, the source of all local information. She knew how you liked your hair, had done it the same way for years, but would try something new if you brought a picture from a magazine. The salon wasn't luxurious, just functional, with vinyl chairs and mirrors spotted with age, but it was a sanctuary, a place women gathered, talked, shared. Today, a woman's cut, and blow-dry costs around 40 pounds minimum, over 200 times more expensive. We've gained blow bars and balayage and hair extensions and lost the community salon, the weekly ritual. Modern hair appointments are faster, more stylish perhaps, but lonelier. We've professionalized hairdressing into an industry and lost the neighborhood hairdresser who knew your name, your children's names, your troubles, and triumphs. Number 1. A child's weekly pocket money, sixpence. This is what brings it all home, makes it real. Sixpence, about 2.5 pence today, was a week's spending money for a child in 1960. And here's the remarkable thing. With that sixpence, a child could buy 4 small chocolate bars, or 10 gobstoppers, or 2 comic books, or a bag of chips, and still have change. That sixpence meant freedom, independence, the ability to make choices. Children would save for weeks to buy something special, a toy car, a doll, learning the value of patience and planning. The sweet shop owner knew every child, knew their favorites, would carefully weigh out the pick and mix, counting each sweet. There was trust in that transaction. The child with their carefully guarded coins, the shopkeeper who'd let you be a penny short if you clearly counted wrong. Today, a child's weekly pocket money averages around 5 pounds, 1,000 times more expensive, and it buys far less. 2 chocolate bars maybe, 1 magazine, a bus fare. We've compressed value to almost nothing, teaching children that money is something spent, not saved. The corner sweet shop is gone, replaced by supermarkets that don't know or care about their customers. We've gained wealth and lost value, gained money and lost meaning. So there it is. Your 5 pounds in 1960, Britain could buy a week's groceries for a family of 4 with enough left over for the Coleman and a pint at the pub. But it wasn't really about the 5 pounds, was it? It was about a way of life, a pace of living, a connection to community and place and season that we've systematically dismantled in the name of progress. Those shop-to-shop Saturdays weren't just shopping, they were the week's social round, where you caught up with neighbors, heard the news, were seen and known. The repetition of it, the ritual, gave life structure and meaning. You knew your butcher, your baker, your greengrocer by name, and they knew you, knew your family, remembered your grandmother had the same order for 40 years. There was trust in those transactions, credit extended on a handshake, extra given when times were hard, no computer systems or credit checks, just human judgment and community care. We've traded all of that for convenience, for 24-hour supermarkets where no one knows your name, for self-service checkouts that eliminate human contact entirely, for online delivery where shopping happens without ever leaving home. We've gained efficiency and lost connection. We've gained choice and lost relationship. We've gained convenience and lost community. The 5 pounds isn't the story. The story is what we've become in the 65 years since, how we've gained so much material wealth and lost something harder to measure, harder to price, but infinitely more valuable. Those prices seem impossibly cheap until you remember that a week's wages in 1960 was around 15 pounds for a working man. Then you realize the proportions were about right, that people spent 1/3 of their income on food because food mattered, because eating together mattered, because the rituals of buying and preparing and sharing food were central to life in a way we've forgotten. We eat faster now, spend less proportionally on food, and are somehow more poorly nourished, not in body perhaps, but in soul. That 5-pound note in 1960 bought more than groceries and coal and beer. It bought participation in a community, in rhythms older than memory, in human connections that made life worth living. We're richer now, infinitely richer in monetary terms, and somehow poorer in ways we're only beginning to understand. Perhaps that's the real shock, not the prices, but what we've lost in the gaining